So we've been talking about different shapes. We're going to focus today on the surface area of compositions. So what I mean by composites, our compositions is shapes that are put together. So a prism with a sphere or a cone or a pyramid. And so what you're going to have to do is you might use lateral area, you might use surface area, or you might just use the area of each face because you can break this down into triangles and rectangles if you need to. And so what you might want to do is just break it down into pieces if it's hard for you to realize whether you're using lateral area or surface area. And in particular, that's easy to do when you're talking about these rectangles. So let's look at these rectangles. And this with this prism on top. So we have two prisms, a triangular prism on top of a rectangular prism. So let me show you kind of step by step, or what you could do with if you want to do piece by piece. So first, let's start here. We'll just pick a place to start. So I'm going to do this front. Well, there's a front and a back. That's a rectangle. So that would be 10 by 17, and there are two of them. Okay, so that gets your front and your back. Then we need our right and our left, and so then we can add our 11 by 10 right here, right? 11 by 10. So we've got an 11 by 10, and we have two of those. That's our right and our left side. Now we need our bottom piece, right? We can't see it, but it's down there, and it's 17 by 11. That's our bottom. Now, we don't need the top because it is between that rectangular prism. So, or that triangular prism. So this is all of our bottom piece. So we do 10 times 17 times 2. That's 340 plus 110 times 2 plus 17 times 11. So we get 747. So that is for our rectangular prism. Okay, then now we need to add the top. So let's do this triangle. Okay, so we base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. Well, the base of the triangle is 17 times the height of the triangle, which is 7. So we have 17 times 7 divided by 2. And there are two of those. We have the front piece, and then we have this back piece. Okay, so we have times 2. So we have 17 times 7 divided by 2 times 2. That gives us 119. So we're going to add 119. So we have 747. We're going to add 119. We can go ahead and do that. You get 866, that's our two triangles. And then we have two rectangles. They're different sizes, so let's look at them separately. So we have this rectangle right here in green. It's 14 by 11. So we have 14 by 11, which is 154. So we're going to add 154. And then we need our other rectangle on this other side. It's 11 by 11. So 11 by 11 is 121. So now if I take 866 and I add 154 and 121, I get 1,141 inches squared for my lateral or for my surface area. You could take the lateral area of the prism on the bottom and add the base. And then you could take the surface area of the triangular prism and subtract one of the faces, but that gets really hard. So I think in this case, this one is easier to do by just taking the area of each face. And so you just have to keep up with it, front, back, right, left. So you might keep up with it by highlighting it or by checking them off as you go. This would be easy to get lost when you do it that way. Okay. So let's look at this one. So this one, I think with our cones, when things are circular, it is easier to think about lateral area and surface area. And so what I have is I have a cone and I have a sphere. And actually, I have half a sphere. So let's look at our cones. So the part of the cone that we need is this part right here. Okay, remember that that's lateral area when you don't add the circle. So we're going to use pi RL for our cone. That's our lateral area. And then we have a sphere, and we need the surface area of our sphere because we're doing this, right? And so we need the surface area of our sphere, but we only want half a sphere. So we want to take our surface area, 4 pi r squared, and we want to divide it by 2. And we want to add those two together. So now we can just plug in our numbers. Pi times the radius, 5, times the slant height, 13, plus 4 times pi times the radius, which is 5 squared, divided by 2. You can type this in on your calculator just like that. So pi times 5 times 13 plus 4 times pi times 5 squared divided by 2. And you get, it says round to the nearest tenth. And so we have 361.3, and that would be yards squared. So in that case, it's easier because there's not a shape. It's not actually a triangle. So you can't actually just add all the shapes together like we could with the triangles and the rectangles. Okay, and the last one, we may want to do a combination of both of those. So a prop for the play has the following dimensions. The exterior of the box, with the exception of the bottom, is being painted. To the nearest foot, find the surface area that is to be painted. Well, if the bottom isn't going to be painted and the top has part of that cylinder, we could take this and just do lateral area. So we could use the lateral area. Okay, we could do the lateral area of our prism. Now, and then what we could do is we need this surface, and we need this surface, and we need the backside surface of the cylinder. So really, we need all of the surface area of the cylinder, except we only need half of it. So we could find the surface area and do the cylinder, okay, and take half of it. So let's look at what we need to do here. So the lateral area of a prism, when you look that up, that is pH, the perimeter of the base times the height. So the perimeter of the base would be 6 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5. So the perimeter of the base is 22. And the height of the shape is 8.5. So we're going to do 8.5. So 22 times 8.5 is 187. That gives me all of these surfaces. Okay, that's my lateral area. I don't need the bottom. It says the bottom's not going to be painted. So now let's look at the cylinders. So the surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. That comes from your formula chart. So let's look at your cylinder. So we have our radius of 3, and then the distance between your sides is 5. So we have 2 times pi times the radius, which is 3, times the height, which is 5, plus 2 times pi times the radius, which was 3 squared. Type that in on your calculator just like that. And we get 150.8. But don't forget, that's for the whole cylinder. Okay, we only need half of it. So we need to divide by 2 because it's half a cylinder. So we take that number, we divide by 2, and we get 75.4. Okay, that's for half the cylinder. So now I can take the lateral area of the prism, and I can take the half cylinder and add those together. And I get that the area that we are going to paint is 262.4. This is round to the nearest foot that needs to be painted. So we're going to round to 262 feet squared to paint. Round to the nearest foot. Okay, so you have to pay attention to what's going to be painted. If you needed to, you could have found the area of the front and doubled it to get the back. then you could have found the area of the right and the left and added those together. You still would have had to have found, now you could do half a circle and half a circle, and then the half the lateral area, but sometimes it's easier just to think about as few pieces as possible. So sometimes you want to use lateral area, sometimes you're going to use surface area, and sometimes you're just going to find the area of each face. Anytime you have a shape that doesn't have a singular equation to help you find how to find the surface area.